Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Let's talk romantic justice, betrayal, and why rape porn is so popular. First of all, let's understand the situation here. The colonists came, right? The white Jew and LGBT community created token minorities and whitewashed everybody, right? Miami Beach, Santa Cruz, okay, the malls. These things are full of people in white culture. You could be in Miami on the beach and they could be 90% minorities. And they're all whitewashed, catwalking, Sports Illustrated models, types, wannabes, right? These people are in white culture. The left-right paradigm, right? The government, the police, the military, white culture. And so the fact that people aren't using a universal scale is very telling. And if we say, hey, the problem is they're using the white man scale, there's people who get very angry. Some people say, blame the Jews. And the Jews say, blame the white man. And the gay community says, leave the gay community out of it. So if we're going to go group by group and say the elitists want you to see it this way, date this way, they're like, shut the fuck up. If you were to say, hey, the police, they do something funny here, here, and here, and they want you to see it in terms of this fraternity, kind of police fraternity scale, a provider, someone who's accepted in the community, they're probably like, shut up. The military, you think that they hit the roof, right? They're full of rapists and so on, and they're raping each other all day, every day. There's this huge problem. No matter how much people speak on it, they can't tackle it for the life, and they don't separate the barracks, male from female. They don't do anything. They just let them rape them. And they're like, shut the hell up and fall in line, okay? And then you have, the colleges, the frats. Dude, don't be a hater, man. And they're running trains on females, drugging them left and right. Again, there's all this rape that goes on in college and then even Ivy League schools covering it up because a university is full of nerds doesn't mean they have scruples and values, right? They probably means they don't, right? A nerd is defined as worthless and foolish and contemptible. And there's jocks there, and they're getting drunk, and they're trying to catch females slipping, and so on and so forth. Now, why do they need to rape them in the first place, right? Because females naturally prefer a righteous warrior who's, ideally to them is a chief or something. Someone like me, right? They naturally prefer the indigenous righteous warrior chief if they're an indigenous person, and quite often from their race. If someone's mixed like me, Mexicans, the word mix is in Mexican, South Americans, very Brazilians and Afro-Brazilians alike would prefer me because they're mixed. Once you bring it to their attention that, hey, you're mixed and I'm mixed and your race is like a made-up construct and it's like bred by the white man, they would say, hey, I should look for character and not for my specific quote-unquote race. Now you can imagine there's people from different minority races like, shut up about that. Dude, no, that's not how it works, dude, or whatever, right? Stupid, right? So because everyone and their mom is lying consistently and playing the game, the word game is the word mage scrambled, right? Deception, magic tricks, illusion, shun, illusion. A showgirl, a whole girl, horror movie, horror, or they give you a hard time if you don't do it their way, but they give you a harder time if you do it their way, and they laugh at you and say they just let you like Donald Trump said. These are the facts here. Feminists help them do it. They bring up rape. A lot of feminists are lesbians. They're like, yeah, bring up the rape, make them hate man, and send them my way. Tell them, think of themselves as like a sex slave, and I'll teach them the ropes, right? Very sick thing to do. Everyone knows these things take place. They don't think they take place just once in a long time. No, these things take place on a massive scale all day, every day. That's why it's a game, not isolated events that a few people do here and there on a fluke. No, these things are the mainstream culture. These are the mainstream dating processes, people sleeping with their bosses, okay? And who's being cheated the most? It's not the quote-unquote damsel in distress. She just has to close her legs and shut her mouth and stop sleeping with scoundrels and wait for the ideal person to come or not date anybody. When she says, hey, I'm going to leverage my looks to date scoundrels to get money, that's called being a punk-ass whore. Thus, the prostitute in the Bible is someone who's burned with fire, who goes to hell, who accepts the mark of the beast, who's a spirit of a city, a people, an individual, a slut, what have you. The whore that rode the beast, a dumb bitch. And the scoundrels who turned her out, they're like lizards. They're like an ancient serpent, the devil, the ancient dragon, leading the whole world astray. He's like, blame the prostitute. I have nothing to do with it, right? He created the prostitute. The colonial elite created the prostitute. And as people are closer to them, the upper managerial class, what have you, they're more guilty and less deserving of a hot chick. Who would have thought that you're not supposed to date Lex Luthor because he sabotaged everyone else and maybe looks better than everyone else? Including the most righteous person ever lived, who's naturally more handsome than everyone else, but it probably is not the case even now because Lex Luthor is so ugly inside that it shows through the outside, like every other rich person, so to speak. Now, if the rich want to scramble to do the right thing, so I speak more favorably of them, be my guest. I'd love to do it. I'm not going to sell out, but, do the right thing. But until then, you're Lex Luthor and George Soros. And excuse my French, I'm going to have to say something controversial. You're Lex Luthor, George Soros, and the Penguin sucking a preacher's dick like a bitch. With your little choir boy that you're mentoring, saying, teach me how to be a bitch too, so I can get a fair weather slut too. And it's a disgrace.